forever so gently. Word of that shoulder for all the rest of the night, black for the branches in the morning, and the blue branches of the world go with the floating, of course, but not rather for the plumber, the matter for the metaphor of the body, for the ocean and fluids. Need that body for the fluid, instinct and imagination for the dark hug of time, for the sweetest intangibility, to be understood, but more for the pure light that burns where no one is. So it enters in the morning for the shining of the brute comfort like a stitch of the lightning. Light up that deep wondrous drowning of the body like a star. For the every morning for the world is created under the orange and sticks of the song, for the heaping of the ashes of the night to turn again. Fast themselves to the high branches of the ponds appear. Black cloth, which are painted for the islands of the summer lilies in the nature for the being happy, the swimming away for the soft trails. Hours of your imaginations for the idea everywhere, for the spirit for carry within it. The thorn, heavier than a lead, for this is you could do for the keep on trucking you, and this is somewhere for the deep within you, for the best of shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with the blazing. Every morning for the weather or not you have dared to be happy, for the weather or not you have dared to pray. Did you see it? Drifting all night for the black river, did you see the morning rising into the silver air for the arm for the white blossoms? Perfect commotion of silk with the linen that's lean into the bonnets of the wings and the snow bank with the bank of lilies and the gliding of the air for the black beak. Did you hear fluting and whistling for the sharp, shrill dark music for the rain, petting the trees like a water for the distant? Did you see it for the under the clouds and white cross steaming across the sky and its feet like black leaves and its wings stretching like the river? For did you ever feel your heart pertain to everything that you do, finally figure out what the beauty is for? Have you changed that life? I understand it for the figures of what the soul is, for the hidden, for the wet shape for the last week I found at the beach of the earbone. Pilot whale for the night I may have died hundreds of years ago, but I thought maybe I was close to discovering something with the earbone. It's the proportion that lasts as long as any of us. Man or a whale shaped like a squat spoon with a pink scoop, where once lively simmers, heads for the joining of the two sisters in the house of the hearing, only 2 inches long. I thought the soul was might as maybe hardly necessary for almost everything. Besides the gray sea opening and the shutting of the wave at the door for the unfolding and over with the time ridiculous of a roar for the looking and couldn't see if they were really dark and clear. This is knowing the cold stand there at the bottom for the eyes never seen it for the hands ever watching to catch it. This is the least which will sit down for the fractures and facts and certainties. This with the soul is also believing and never quite know for the go for the edge of knowing for the truly I know for the partisan knowing but looking and touching and loving, which was the way we walked on softly. Pale pink morning light for the summer morning sat down. Thanking God for the worthy pastime near and Esau. And single women with the moving and the grains on the hillside with the way the wind with the girl for the energy for the humble and forever for let us hope it will always be like this for each going on in its inevitable ways when I can find that dance where it begins. Whose mouths to be open for the calling of the world so adorable for the useful not it for the frisky theater for more than the fair wind's eyelash. Lighting is neither good nor evil for the struck tree. Pillar for gold for the blue rain sings straight to the white feet of the trees for the whose mouths open. Dissonant wind turning the circles and vent the dance. Having the flowers move for the slowly for the Asian, the European man the shine in your own yard for the calling of explanations and even education. Whirling, looking outward for the mountains so solidly there for the capping of the ring for you looking. Center for everything with the sea for the idea for this is also the beautiful as a thumb. Curve and touching of the finger for tenderly love like a ring. Hurling world jug of breath for the garden of dust. Why I wake up early. one proves me weak, then fancy strong for the false. Fancy true for the ease, for the smart, for the wounded heart by the thought that it's not you, for the many forgot but the promise made, for this is the faith that falls to dust. Look meanwhile for the mirror through the smiling, for the this is sight. I am not one to trust, for the search, for the vain, for the age and the aging face of the hung arrow, to the fistful fears and the those that making it right now, for the vow, for the growth, for the grace, for the years, for the lose in the face, for the word, for the man. Go for the porter, for the youth, for the sail, not to fail, for the keeping of the course of the truth. For this the way, for the only way, for the least it seems to me, for this is up to you, for thee to be able to do, for the looking up at others and see. Whatever that means to you. One day you finally knew what you had to do, for the began, for the voices around you kept shouting for the bad advice, for those whole house began to tremble, for this the felt for old tug, for your ankles and men of life. Each voice cried, you didn't stop, you knew what it had to do, for the dose of the wine. Pride for the dose of the stiff the fingers and fiery. Foundation for the melancholy, for it was terrible enough, for the deeds are already late for the enough. Wild for the night, roll for the full, falling for the branch, stone for the butt, the little but little, voice in the head. Behind the stars began to burn throughout the street and clouds. This with a new voice with which you slowly recognize your own, for the keeping of the company for the stroke. Deeper into the determined, only you can do. Determined to save, you can save. Sleeping is forwards and you can find the earth. Remember me for the shooking, taking back of the tenderly arranging me for the dark skirts, her pockets, for the lynch in the seats, for the distance slept for the before the stone river, with nothing between me for the wild, the fire of it's just my thoughts and just the flow to get light for the among the branches. Perfect trees. All night I heard for the small kingdoms, breathing around me for the insects and the birds and do what they were for the dark all night. Rose in the fell for the dust of the water, for the groping and luminous. Your leaning on, holding on. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on the knees for the 100 miles to the desert. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, I will tell you mine. Meanwhile the world goes on, meanwhile the sun for the clear pebbles of the rain, for the moving across the landscape, for the prairies and the deep trees, mountain and the rivers and the meanwhile wild geese, high within the clean blue air for the heading home again, whoever you are. no matter how lonely. The world offers itself to the imagination, causes like the wild geese. Harsh and exciting and over-announced your place in the family of things. The spirit likes to dress up like this, 10 fingers and 10 toes and shoulders and all the rest of the night for the black branches in the morning, but in the blue branches, the world could not float, of course, but would rather plumb rough matter for the airy, shapeless thing it needs for the metaphor of the body, for the line, for the appetite, for the oceanic fluids and needs for the body's world, instinct and imagination for the dark hug of time, sweetness and intangibility for the to be understood, for the more pure light burns one. No one is, and so it enters us in the morning for the shines of the brute, comfort like stitch of the lightning, and at night lights up the deep with the wondrous drownings of the body as a star. Every morning in the world for the creator under the orange and sticks of the sun, for the heat, ashes of the night turn into the leaves again, for the fasten themselves to the high branches of the ponds appear, for the black cloth in which are painted in islands. Summer lilies, if it's your nature to be happy to swim away for the long soft trails for hours in your imaginations and hiding everywhere for the spirit for the carrying within it. The thorn that is heavier than a lead is all you can do for the keep on trudging. There's still somewhere deep within you the rest, the shouting of the earth is exactly what it wanted for each pond, with its blazing lilies and the prayer heard, answer lavishly every morning, whether or not you have that dare to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. Did you do see it for the drifting of night, for the black river, for the see it in the morning, for the rising into the silvery air, for the armor, white blossoms, perfect commotion of silk in the linen and leaned into the bondage of his wings. Snow bank with the bank of lilies in the brinding, biting at the air for the bat beak. Did you hear it fluting and whistling for the shrine? The dark music is like the rain petting the trees, like a weight knife down the black ledges. And did you see it finally just under the clouds, like a black leaf, its wings just stretching like the river? For the did you ever feel it, the heart for the pertaining of everything that you have to finally figured out what its beauty is for and change your life? Understand, I am always trying to figure out what the soul is and where hidden and in what shape and what. So last week when I found that beach for the ear bone, for the potted well, for the may have died, for the hundreds of years ago that I thought that maybe I was close to discovering something but the ear bone. Leaning on, holding on. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on the knees for the 100 miles to the desert. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun for the clear pebbles of the rain, for the moving across the landscape, for the prairies and the deep trees, mountain and the rivers, for the meanwhile wild geese, high within the clean blue air, for the heading home again, whoever you are. No matter how lonely, the world offers itself to the imagination, causes like the wild geese. Harsh and exciting and over-announced your place in the family of things. The spirit likes to dress up like this, with the 10 fingers and 10 toes and shoulders and all the rest of the night, for the black branches in the morning, but in the blue branches, the world could not float, of course, but would rather plumb rough matter for the airy, shapeless thing it needs for the metaphor of the body, for the line, for the appetite, for the oceanic fluids and needs for the body's world, instinct and imagination for the dark hug of time, sweetness and intangibility for the to be understood, for the more pure light burns one. No one is, and so it enters us in the morning for the shines of the brute, comfort like stitch of the lightning, And at night lights up the deep and the wondrous drownings of the body as a star. Every morning in the world for the creator under the orange and sticks of the sun for the heat. Ashes of the night turn into the leaves again for the fasten themselves to the high branches of the ponds appear for the black cloth in which are painted in islands. Summer lilies, if it's your nature to be happy to swim away for the long soft trails for hours in your imaginations and hiding everywhere for the spirit for the carrying within it. The thorn that is heavier than a lead is all you can do for the keep on trudging. There's still somewhere deep within you the best, the shouting of the earth is exactly what it wanted for each pond. With its blazing lilies and the prayer heard, answer lavishly every morning, whether or not you have that dare to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. Did you do see it for the drifting of night, for the black river, for the sea, and in the morning for the rising into the silvery air, for the armor, white blossoms, perfect commotion of silk in the linen and leaned into the bondage of its wings. Snow bank with the bank of lilies in the branding, biting at the air for the bat beak. Did you hear it fluting and whistling for the shrine? The dark music is like the rain petting the trees like a weight knife down the black ledges. And did you see it finally just under the clouds like a black leaf, its wings just stretching like the river? For the did you ever feel it, the heart for the pertaining of the everything that you have to finally figured out what the beauty is for and change your life? Understand, I am always trying to figure out what the soul is and where hidden and in what shape and what. So last week when I found that beach for the earbone, for the potted well, for the mayhap died, for the hundreds of years ago that I thought that maybe I was close to discovering something but the earbone. One proves me weak, then fancy strong for the false, fancy true for the ease, for the smart, for the wounded heart by the thought that is not you, for the many forgot but the promise made, for this is the faith that falls to dust. Look meanwhile for the mirror through the smiling for the this is height. I am not one to trust for the search for the vein, for the fate and the aging fates of the hun arrow, to the fistful fears and the those that making it right now, for the vow, for the growth, for the grace, for the years, for the lose in the face, for the word, for the man. Go for the porter, for the youth, for the sail, not to fail, for the keeping of the course of the truth. For this the way, for the only way, for the least it seems to me, for this is up to you, for thee to be able to do, for the looking up at others and see. Whatever that means to you. One day you finally knew what you had to do, for the began, for the voices around you kept shouting for the bad advice, for those whole house began to tremble, for this the felt for old tug, for your ankles and mineral life. Each voice cried, you didn't stop, you knew what it had to do for the those of the line. Pride for the those who still the fingers and furry. Foundation for their melancholy, for it was terrible enough, for the these are already late for the enough. Wild for the night, roll for the full, falling for the branch, stone for the butt, the little but little. Voice in the head, behind the stars began to burn for throughout the streets and clouds. This with a new voice with which you slowly recognize your own, for the keeping of the company, for the stroke deeper into the determined. Only you can do, determined to save, you can save. Sleeping is forwards and you can find the earth, remember me for the shaking, taking back at the tenderly arranging me, for the dark skirts, her pockets, for the lynch in the seats, for the distance slept for the before the stone river, and nothing between it, for the wild, the fire of it's just my thoughts, and just the flow to get light for the among the branches, perfect trees. All night I heard for the small kingdoms, breathing around me for the insects and the birds and do what they work for the dark all night. Rose in the fell for the dust of the water, for the groping and luminous. proves me weak, then fancy strong for the false. Fancy true for the ease, for the smart, for the wounded heart by the thought that is not you, for the many forgotten proves me weak, then fancy strong for the false. Fancy true for the ease, for the smart, for the wounded heart by the thought that is not you, for the many forgot but the promise made, for this is the faith that falls to dust. Look meanwhile for the mirror through the smiling, for the this is sight. I am not one to trust, for the search, for the vain, for the fate, and the aging face of the hun arrow, to the physical fears, and those that making it right now, for the vow, for the growth, for the grace, for the years, for the lose in the face, for the word, for the man. Go for the porter, for the youth, for the sail, not to fail, for the keeping of the course of the truth. For this the way, for the only way, for the least it seems to me, for this is up to you, for the you to be able to do, for the looking up at others and see. Whatever that means to you. One day you finally knew what you had to do, for the began, for the voices around you kept shouting for the bad advice, for those whole house began to tremble, for this the felt for old tug, for your ankles and men of life. Each voice cried, you didn't stop, you knew what I had to do, for the those of the wine. Pride for the those of the stiff, the fingers and fiery. Foundation for the melancholy, for it was terrible enough, for the these are already late for the enough. Wild for the night, roll for the full, falling for the branch, stone for the but the little, voice in the head. Behind the stars began to burn throughout the street and clouds. This for the new voice with which you slowly recognize your own, for the keeping of the company, for the stroke. Deeper into the determined, only you can do. Determined to save, you can save. Sleep in the forwards and you can find the earth. Remember me for the shaking, taking back of the tenderly arranging me, for the dark skirts, her pockets, for the lynch and the seats, for the distance slept for the before the stone river and nothing between it.